I'm Kate Murray. I'm the president and CEO of Canada's Stem Cell Network, and I'm really honored to be moderating this all-star panel of women leaders in regenerative medicine today. And in the lead up to International Women's Day, I know we're only at March, but this is definitely going to be one of the highlights of my calendar year, that I get to hang out with this wonderful crew of women over the next 60 minutes. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the lands on which we live and work as we come together for this important discussion. It's essential, I believe, to recognize the deep histories and ongoing connections that Indigenous peoples have with our lands and our waters. The work of Canada's Stem Cell Network occurs from coast to coast and on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territory of many Indigenous peoples and nations, including the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, where the Stem Cell Network is headquartered. SCN honors, we recognize and respect these nations as the traditional stewards of the lands and the waters where we work, meet, and play. So this is an exciting opportunity to celebrate the achievements of women in science and to hear from a diverse group of leaders who are really making an impact in regenerative medicine. Each one of them, I find, inspiring. They are why I come to work every day, because I want to make sure that they've got the tools that they need, the resources they need, the supports they need, the networks they need, so that they can do their work, because it's their science, it's their efforts, their policy efforts and clinical trials expertise that's really making Canada's regenerative medicine ecosystem blossom. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. If I can help them do what they do, then I know that I've done my little bit. And so thank you to all of you who are joining us today. And thank you to those who submitted questions. We'll also try to take some from those who are online, and we'll address as many as we can. So on that, and I'd like to just jump right in, because this isn't about you listening to me yip yap on. This is about you having the opportunity to hear from some of the brilliant experts, researchers from across our network, who all just happen to be women. So let me start with Vardit Ravitsky. She's had an incredible career spanning academia and leadership, shaping ethical discussions around genomics, AI and healthcare, and reproductive technologies. Today, Vardit's serving as the president and CEO of the Hastings Center in New York. This is, for those of you who don't know, one of the most influential bioethics and health policy institutes in the world. So Google it. She's also a part-time senior lecturer at Harvard Medical School, was previously a full professor at the University of Montreal. Given Vardit's experience navigating complex ethical landscapes, I'd love to start by asking Vardit, have you had mentors or role models who helped shape your career? And what have you learned about effective leadership and leading a team?
Thank you, Kate. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm honored and very delighted that you chose to include bioethics and policy in a panel on regenerative medicine. We've been working, our community of researchers have been working so hard to be seen as an integral part of science. And this is exactly how you express that. So I'm very grateful to you. Of course, I had role models and mentors, and I want to mention especially Professor Bartha Maria Knoppers, that is known to the genomics and stem cell community in Canada and internationally, because she's a leader in policy and ethics of all the science that we do. And, she recently retired, and in her retirement party, dozens of her trainees and students talked about the impact that she had on their lives. And what brought many of us to tears was not just the description of her academic support and the opportunities to publish and to speak and the networks, the global networks she created, and how she always made sure trainees are invited into those networks. It was the human aspect of her mentorship. Each and every mentee or trainee or past student, many of them are now leading professors, talked about how she touched their lives, how she saw them as a whole person, how she became practically a part of the family, how career decisions that she advised on always took into consideration what is happening in that person's life and not just narrowly their academic prospects and opportunities. So to me, that was very inspiring. I'll mention two other mentors who were men, Zeke Emanuel and Art Kaplan, who were my first chairs in my career. And what I want to say about them is that ever since, they have remained a part of my life and a phone call away every time I faced a decision or a challenge. And this notion that a good mentor stays with you for the rest of your life, it's not just PhD, it's not just postdoc, it's not just the chair of your department. It's someone who's going to be there for you for the rest of your career. We have dinners, we consult. I try to emulate this and be that for my students. I almost feel like they're all children when they have their kids. I call it the academic grandma. I go through life with them, helping them through career choices. And I think that that is one of the most meaningful and rewarding relationship that we can have if we think of it as a lifelong journey. One word about what I've learned about leadership. I think when you become more senior in your career, it's so important to remain accessible, to remain empathic and connected to the reality of the more junior scholars around you. Some trainees tell me that when they speak to big names, they feel intimidated. They feel that big shot scientists are very much focused on their career and their mentorship is trying to create you in their image. They want to replicate themselves. And I think it's so important to meet junior scholars where they are, understand their lived experience, have a lot of empathy and a lot of listening, and mentor them in a way that's useful to them, not because you're replicating yourself. So I guess what I've learned about effective leadership is less ego, more communication. And I'll stop with that so that we can have more time for conversation. Thank you for inviting me, Kate.
That was absolutely terrific. Thank you, Vardit. So, picking up on that, Priye, I remember a number of years ago now, I guess, you were in Tim Kiefer's lab at UBC, working in the area of diabetes. And I'd come for a visit. And I remember part of the conversation. Well, I remember two things. One, I was blown away by your brilliant brain. And as you explained your way around the lab and all of the different experiences that were going on and experiments that were going on, and how some of those who were more junior in the lab were coming up to you, seeking guidance and advice, and you were already providing great mentorship to them. And it was a delight to see and to experience. And it's a moment that's really stuck with me, I think. But my question for you is, at that time, you were thinking about what next? You were trying to navigate your own career path and think about where you'd like to go, and how to transition. And I'm wondering if you can share what that journey was like for you. How'd you approach finding opportunities after completing your studies? And what do we need to get you to come back to Canada?
Awesome. Thank you, Kate, for that introduction. I mean, you've stuck in my life. You are stuck with me from now till the end of time. I love you. So, about my story. I have to take it back to, I'm born and raised in Nigeria and moved to Canada for my postgraduate education. And the sort of individual that I am and the way that I was kind of raised is we are all go-getters, all myself and my siblings. We're go-getters no matter what we're doing. We want to give it 200%. When I did my undergrad, I wanted to make sure that I was ready for any opportunity that presented itself to me. And to me, that looked like doing co-op. So I had some form of experience when I went to interview. I took that and then did a thesis and actually fell in love with research. That is where I fell in love with research. I did not want to be a researcher or didn't think about it at that point in time. I either wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be an architect or a mathematician. That was it. And fast forward, I've fallen in love with research and I decided I would go in for postgraduate work, but specifically just a master's. I didn't want to do a PhD because for me, doing a PhD meant I wanted to become a professor. I didn't want to become a professor. I enjoyed educating people, but I did not want to become a professor. So a PhD was out of the question for me. And during that time, it was about networking wherever I went. If there was a conference that I could go to, I just wanted to show up. If I was scared or felt even intimidated about talking to people, I would identify a friend so that we could walk around. And then I felt some sort of safety in that space while I was navigating this conference, being just a young trainee. After that, I went into the workforce. And one thing that struck me with all of the biotech companies that I was applying to, specifically for a scientist position, was I was told flat out, the recruiter or the manager is not going to look at your CV because you don't have a PhD. It was simply a reality that was told to me by multiple people. But I was overqualified for other things. So I was in this weird limbo. And at the time, I was working in Tim's lab where we had started doing more of the stem cell work and trying to make stem cells into insulin-producing cells that could be used as a form of therapy for type 1 diabetes or insulin-dependent diabetes. And so I thought, you know, I love this work. I talked to Tim. I said, here is my goal. I'm not interested necessarily in academia for this, but I love the work. So can we make this into a PhD? And he was very receptive of that. So that is actually how I came back to do a PhD, not because I wanted to go necessarily into academia. I wanted to be able to have the conversations with biotech for the jobs that I wanted. Like I wanted to get in the room and I couldn't even get in the room because I was told I didn't have a PhD. So when I was doing my PhD, I also had that same mindset of staying prepared. I kept it with the conferences. I joined organizations like Stem Cell Network with all the opportunities they had for trainees and eventually joined the Trainee Communications Committee as well, where I was a chair there. So I left myself open to opportunities, but stayed prepared by networking, by finding all of these different connections. Even with Tim, I remember telling him, you are my person in a room. If you can, I want you to bring me into these meetings. I might not necessarily be able to contribute at this point in time, but I want to hear the conversations that are being had, right? So that I'm aware of what is going on. So that's kind of what I did. And my goal was that by the time I was done my PhD, I wanted to already have job offers. And that's what ended up happening. So towards the last year of my PhD, when I was writing up, I had several people approach me for the opportunities, interviewed for them, got those positions. And then by the time I was done, I had secured the position that I wanted. And then the next step was moving and navigating this new space and industry.
Wow. Amazing. What a great story. And you know, my tip is always when I go into a new room, I'm not allowed to leave until I've met 3 new people. Then you can leave. And I feel like that's fair. And when you do that networking, it really does open doors for sure. And I love the idea of staying prepared and open and that you gave Tim direction about what you needed from him. I think that's also absolutely critical as we go through our careers. So next, I'd like to bring in Natasha Chang. Natasha is an assistant professor at McGill University, and her work focuses on understanding muscle stem cells and developing regenerative medicine strategies for conditions like Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. The first time I met Natasha, it was when she was working in Dr. Michael Rudnicki's lab in Ottawa, and she was very patient and kind with me. I was getting her to pose for all sorts of photos and videos and things at the time, and she's like this, and I was like, just a little more like that. And she played along. So thank you, Natasha, for letting me turn your day upside down. So Natasha, you've spoken in the past about luck playing a role in your career journey, in your life journey. But it also seems pretty clear to me that when opportunities have presented themselves, you leaned in and you said, why not me? And that mindset has really helped you build a successful career while making choices that worked for both you and your family. And I'm wondering if you can share how you approached those pivotal moments and what advice you'd give to others about recognizing and seizing opportunities.
Thank you so much, Cate, and thank you for that kind intro. Yes, so when I reflected on that, I realized that there were two critical moments in my career where I had to make decisions. And I think at the bottom line of those decisions, I was really trying to pursue what I love and what makes me happy. That's really the underlying motivation behind those decisions. So the first one was when I was finishing my PhD and looking for a postdoc. I knew that research was my passion and that was what I loved to do. So I knew a postdoc was a logical next step. At the same time, my partner got a job in Ottawa. And so I made that decision to look for a postdoc in Ottawa and to follow my partner. And I think when I look back, I think that was a critical decision on so many levels, because first of all, it made me look and think, who's doing interesting research in Ottawa? Where can I find the best lab for me? And that's how I landed in Michael Rudnicki's lab, which has really shaped my research career in terms of what I do now and as an independent researcher. But on another level, it was a personal choice, right? And I ended up 3 years into my postdoc having my first child in Ottawa, and 2 years later having my second child. So, on a personal level, it has changed my life in a huge way, right? And in the best way possible. So making that decision to pursue interesting research and my personal happiness was, I think, a critical decision for me. And I would also say that the decision to join Michael's lab was also where I changed fields in terms of scientific research. So my PhD was in something completely different. It was on cancer cell biology. And I took a huge jump and went into muscle stem cells. And I think that challenge and that change in fields has really helped me develop as a scientist. And that has helped me greatly as well. Of course, the second big decision is after the postdoc, what are you going to do? And I remember at that time very clearly that I was not sure if I could pursue a research career because I had two young kids. So they were 4 years old and 2 years old at the time. And as you know, young kids are a lot of work. So I really questioned whether or not this was possible. And here's where I feel like reaching out to mentors it can be life-changing. So I reached out to Catherine Safildis, who she ran this female postdoc mentoring group. And I reached out to her and I explained to her that this was how I was feeling. And I remember so clearly that she said, you have to make it work for you. And of course, it's possible. And that has really stuck with me. And so that has really changed my decision to apply for academic positions and has led me to where I am now. And I won't forget that. So it's really, I think, finding mentors that can support you and asking those difficult questions to help you get where you need to be. And when I had mentioned luck, it was really also things happening to be at the right time. And timing played an important part. And so I think recognizing those opportunities when they come up and seizing those opportunities. So for example, the department where I'm in now was in the middle of a search for an assistant professor. And when I realized that this was a huge opportunity, I jumped in, I dropped everything that I was doing. I wrote my CV and my research proposal in 2 days and I sent it right away. And looking back, I don't have any regrets. I think this is where I get to learn and be challenged and work with a team of scientists. And I get to pursue the research that I'm interested in. So I definitely have no regrets.
Fantastic. It's like a Nike commercial. Just do it. Just
Yeah.
get it done. Anastassia is next up on my hit list. And Anastassia and I have been spending a lot of time together this week. And I'd like to thank her for being such an incredible champion for the stem cell network over the years and recently. Now, Anastassia is on the other side of the country at the University of Alberta, and her lab focuses on how neural stem cells contribute to brain repair with the goal of developing treatments for neurological disorders like multiple sclerosis and KBG syndrome. And Anastassia, throughout your career, can you chat with us about what challenges you faced, either as an aspiring scientist or as a woman in science? And how have strong mentors like Frida Miller and your mom shaped your path? And how do you now bring that forward in mentoring your own trainees?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for this wonderful introduction. I'm very happy to support the Stem Cell Network. And thank you for the invitation. This is a very important discussion to have. So I'm originally from Estonia, which is a small dot on a global map just below Finland. And I really wanted to do a PhD in stem cell biology. And so there is no better country than Canada to do so. As we all know, this is where stem cells were discovered. There's a wealth of knowledge and expertise here and a wealth of mentors. And so I was very lucky to have 3 big mentors in my life. So first, as you mentioned, my mom. She was a single mom for a while, and she's a chemist, so she's a lab technician. And so I remember spending a lot of my first few years of my life, whenever memory has actually stuck with me, playing in the lab with Erlenmeyer flasks, and that was a lot of fun. And then I was very fortunate that at the University of Ottawa, Dr. Lona Skarians has taken me on as an international PhD student. So I thought it was a big risk at the time for her, but I'm very happy that she did so. And it was really during that time that I felt like I was in a very safe environment. She really created a very safe space where I could make my scientific mistakes and learn from them. And I didn't feel the pressure that I had to outperform or be in a very competitive environment. So it really allowed me to flourish. But it's also Lona who opened my eyes to different fields, different challenges. And we had really open and frank conversations about challenges as a woman in science. And so that's really shaped the rest of my scientific career. And so for my postdoc, I, just like Dr. Natasha Chang, I switched my fields. And so was in the muscle stem cell field before. And I decided to challenge myself and more out of the muscle to the brain. Had a very small side project that allowed me to network at the neurosciences conferences. And so I met Frida Miller, and I was just blown away, not just by her science, but just by her personality and the attitude of how she sailed through her scientific career and also through life, because she's very open about her own career and challenges. And so it changed my perspective on how to actually think about stem cells. I thought we can put stem cells into a tissue, and then I met Frida and I was like, hey, we can pharmacologically engage existing stem cells. That's a lot, like that's really a lot of fun. And so that really has shaped the rest of my career. That's how I think as well. So we try to understand the molecular clues that stem cells use during development to make specific cell types. And then we kind of hijack those molecular pathways now to help with adult neurological disorders. And so Frida is an amazing mentor, and she has at the time, she had a very big lab when I joined her at the hospital for sick children. And she provided mentorship not just in how to ask important, big scientific questions and what is the best way to answer them, using the resources and the time that you have, but it was also how do you present and effectively communicate. And she spent a lot of time with me looking through my proposals for faculty positions and practicing interview with me because English is my third language. And so I need a little bit of help. And so I credit a lot of my success to all three of these mentors in my life. And I try to emulate a lot of their attitudes, I guess, in my own mentorship now. I often think, what would Alona do? Or what would Frida do in sometimes challenging situations? But first, I guess in my own lab, what I try to do is really build a diverse environment, a diverse team, and really create a safe space, just like Ilona did, so that students are not afraid to come to you with questions or concerns, and they're not afraid to talk to each other and really troubleshoot. And that's, I think, is what was really important for me at the time, and what I try to emulate now. And then the other mentorship approach that I've taken is really listening to what the students want. Not everybody wants to stay in academia, nor should they. And so we often have these conversations about what do you want to do when you grow up? And so while I sometimes and often cannot be a mentor in a specific sort of scientific path, so whether it's industry or maybe a regulatory path, or public health, I draw on my connections and I reach out to my friends and colleagues that I know, and I ask them to have the conversations with my students who are interested in particular careers, so they have a very clear understanding of what the day-to-day looks like. And sometimes what's in our heads doesn't correspond to the reality. And so all of a sudden students realize that maybe this isn't the path that I want, but also what it takes to get into these positions and what it takes to retain these positions as well, so they can be as well informed as they possibly can. And then we just work on trying to form the mentorship around this so that they can actually secure that position once they graduate. So that's been sort of my strategy as I've been leading my lab almost now for 7 years. It's unbelievable. I feel like it's just the time has flown by.
Oh, that's terrific. So on that, we had some people who actually sent us in questions before today, and so I thought I'd run through a few of those questions. So answer as you wish. And so the first one is, what do you wish you had known 10, 15, 20 years ago that would have helped you in your career journey? What would you tell yourself?
Maybe I can chime in on that one. So what I think I would have told myself, and with the caveat that I would want the experiences as well to really frame the message first, because just knowing that is not good enough. You might still just kind of do what you're doing. I would tell myself glorified suffering is not a flex. It is absolutely not a flex. I am an individual that loves to work hard. I think my baseline is working hard. So if I say I'm working hard, that is more than the typical from my point of view. And if I stopped doing anything, I felt so much guilt and shame that you could be doing this. How dare you stop? How dare you relax? Even when I was burnt out, like I would give myself only permission to stop after everything was done because it was Christmas break and the university is closed. So, you kind of have to stop when you need to stop. That's when I would let myself relax and then I would get sick. It was like clockwork every single time. And the thing that broke me literally and figuratively was a few years ago, I broke my leg and both bones were broken on opposite sides. Had to have surgery, put in the rod. I'm now bionic. But I remember sitting in the hospital waiting for my surgery and thinking, my leg is broken. I can't do anything, so I can rest. That is a sad and was also a very liberating thought for me at the time because I felt I could relax because my leg was broken and I needed to have surgery. So I gave myself permission to stop. And that's not a flex. Hard work and glorified suffering are not the same thing at all, but I saw them as the same thing.
Wow. Okay. I need to have a deep talk with myself. Vardit, what do you think?
I want to jump right on that wagon because one of the main things I would tell myself, my younger self, is realize that every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, which is another way of articulating what Priya just said. We forget when we're young and hungry that there's an opportunity cost. We think we can just add on and on. And sometimes our mentors, when we ask, should I do this or that, they say, you should do this and that. And to me, that today, that's bad mentorship because it leads to what was just described, which is dangerous and non-productive. And, we need to not just worry about burnout, we need to live. And if you're in this field, you're hardworking as a baseline, I think all of us. And so later in life, I developed, with the help of my team, a decision guide. It's a list of questions that I use, and I carry it on me all the time, like a little Bible. And it's a list of questions that allow me to screen opportunities. It can be a collaboration, a speaking engagement, travel, whatever it is, it's professional opportunities that need to be screened based on thoughtful criteria. And it includes, the first question is, what is the opportunity cost? If I add this to my plate, what gets off my plate? That's a question for decades I did not ask myself. I just thought the plate could be elastic. Who invited? What is the importance of that collaboration and that relationship? What is the importance for my work? Can somebody else do it instead of me? Sometimes we can just hand it off and create a beautiful opportunity for a more junior scholar. Is the topic a priority for my research program right now? What will be the impact of doing this for society? So you can develop your own list of screening questions, but carrying them mentally in your back pocket regarding each and every opportunity that's presented to you was one of the greatest life lessons. And learning to say no, it's painful. And it's the best thing you can do for your career, because if you chose to say no, there was a good reason. Trust yourself.
Absolutely. I love the idea that you go around with this like rubric or this criteria to help you decide what you will and won't do. That's phenomenal. Natasha.
I want a copy of that list, Vardit. I
Yeah.
think we could all use it. I want to also continue this conversation because I think what Priye brought up is so important, that your health comes first. And I think what I would try to tell my younger self, although I'm not sure I would have listened, is try not to stress out so much, because things have a way of working out and falling into place. Your stress does not make things better. It doesn't fix the problem. And the problem with stress is it can do some really damaging things to your health. And I also learned that firsthand. I actually found out during my, I think it was during my PhD, that I have an autoimmune condition called Sjogren's. And it's mild, it doesn't affect you most of the time, but where it comes out is when you're stressed. And it actually put me in the hospital when I didn't realize what I had. And it has come up, throughout stressful periods where all of a sudden you feel pain in your body. You can't do physical things the way you normally would. You don't feel like getting out of bed. And that is really due to stress. So I think you need to find a way to mitigate that stress and to handle it. So maybe exercise, yoga, going for walks. So oftentimes now when I have a moment where I'm a little bit stressed out or I don't know what to do, I'll just go out of my office and take a walk. There's a mountain right behind me. And so I'll just go for a 20-minute walk, and that helps to clear my mind. So I think learning what your limits are, learning to say no to things so that you don't overwhelm yourself, and really finding ways to deal with stress, all for your health, are what I would have told my younger self.
Yeah, absolutely. Anastassia, did you want to add in anything?
Yeah,
Or
so maybe I can take in a little bit of a different direction, but stay nevertheless with the same topic. Is that I think that as a student or postdoc, I wasn't asked to do too many things. You know, you can just focus on your science, and that was a blessing in the hindsight. But now as a faculty member, we do get inundated with, you know, being asked to serve on committees and different initiatives. And so recently I have sought out actually opportunities of my own. And so there were a couple of initiatives that I thought, you know, why not me? I want to pursue them. And so that gave me an opportunity to say no to other things because my service time was filled, but I was filled doing things that I feel passionate about, that are good for my community where I am in, but they're also incredibly useful for my own program as well. And this may sound a little bit selfish, but it allows me to sort of push the agenda forward, do something really that our community here, for example, at U of A misses, and fill in these knowledge gaps while meeting incredible people and networking and really learning about all the wonderful colleagues that I have that I had no idea about, and that actually enriched my own networking circle and allowed me to pursue very interdisciplinary science, something that I haven't dreamt about a couple of years ago. So maybe a little bit of a different perspective, but actually found it to be incredibly fulfilling, still challenging. But I now have a little bit of an excuse, say, hey, this is great that you're inviting me, but unfortunately my plate is full, and make those I guess those decisions a little bit more evidence-based and intentional, as opposed to saying, hey, I have time in my calendar, sure, I'll do it, not really understanding what the task would entail.
yeah, good for you. Great, gang. Here, I'm sorry that Lauralyn was not able to join us as an ICU doc. She got called away on an emergency, so I think that's definitely forgivable. And we'll get her to come and join us next year. But this has been a really wonderful conversation, and there's been so many great tips. And Vardit, we want your tip sheet, because we want to share it with everybody so we can get that done. And I took some notes as well around some of the wonderful advice that comes from here in today's conversation. Mentors are critical. They come in all forms, shapes, and sizes. Our health comes first. believe in yourself and your confidence, and have confidence and follow the path that is right for you. And lean in and find those opportunities, recognize them, take advantage of them. And in the end, it does work out. I truly believe that. So thank you, Vardit, Natasha, Anastassia, Priye. This has been terrific. To all those of you who joined us and to the Stem Cell Network team who helped to make today happen. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.